Today's daily dose of math is about converting money. There are an awful lot of conversions that can be done between different currencies, and it might seem confusing if you look at a signboard that shows exchange rates for a whole bunch of different currencies. But really, you're only using one exchange rate at a time, and the math of it is small and becomes easy with a bit of practice. Here I have 5 exchange rates. $1 US is 136 Canadian, $1 Canadian is 0.74 US. But I also have conversion between US and Euro, between the Euro and the US, and also between the Euro and Canadian. I won't necessarily need all of these to answer these questions. Looking only at question A, I convert 820 Canadian to US dollars. Then, apparently I'm on a trip to the US, and at the end of the trip I have 200 US left over, and I want to convert it back to Canadian. This is really 2 different questions in one. So we only look at the converting 820 Canadian to US to start with. Now the best way to do this is with a proportion, and the way I build my proportion is I know that I'm using this exchange rate. 1 Canadian equals 0.74 US. But I have 820 Canadian. How much US will that give me? And I solve this with cross multiplication. I end up saying 1 times x equals 820 times 0.74. So x is equal to 606.8, but that needs a unit of measure, so it's $606.80 US. That's how much I get when I convert my 820 Canadian to US at today's exchange rate. Then I don't really need to use this number again because I spent most of that money. I have 200 US left over, and I need to convert it back to Canadian. I'm doing the same process again, but I'm using a different exchange rate. I'm using the reverse exchange rate. 1 US dollar equals 136 Canadian. So I build my proportion the same way. 1 US is equal to 1.36 Canadian. So if I have 200 US, how much is that going to give me? I cross multiply. Now you may have noticed, because we have a 1 here, all we ended up doing was multiplying 820 by 0.74. So I can show that I'm going to be doing 200 times 1.36, and it's going to give me my answer. And it's $272 Canadian. I have my answer. Now, students often will want to use the shortcut of just multiplying the 200 by the 1.36. And that does give the right answer, but be careful, because a student who's doing this is probably using a calculator to do it the way I did. And therefore, the temptation might be to just plunk down the answer, $272 Canadian, and not show how you got it. Showing a proportion keeps you safe, that you are showing your calculations and you won't lose marks for not doing so. But if you are just doing the multiplication as the shortcut, at least make sure to show this multiplication. Don't just plunk down the answer. Now let's answer question B. This one's a bit longer. We start with 2,200 Canadian. We convert it to US dollars. I guess we're going on a trip to the United States. But then we have 1,200 US left over, and we're converting that to euros. And then we will have 110 euros left over, convert that back to Canadian dollars. Okay, so I guess we're doing a trip in 2 stages. From Canada to the US, stay there for a while, and then go from the US to Europe. Stay there for a while, then go back to Canada. Again, we do it in pieces. All we care about at the beginning is 2,200 Canadian has to be converted to US. So, I like to build my proportion showing 2 fraction lines with an equal sign in between, because this is what I call the skeleton of the work that I'm going to show. And it's easier to start doing the work if you have a skeleton to put your numbers and values into. instead of staring at a blank piece of paper. But I'm using the same strategy, and in fact I'm using the same exchange rate to start with. 1 Canadian equals 0.74 US. I'm starting with 2,200 Canadian though. So how much will that be? I'm doing 2,200 times 0.74. And I get 1,628. I got 1,628 US dollars. Then I spent some of it, and I still have 1,200 US, and I'm going to Europe. I have to do the exchange rate again, but I'm using a different exchange rate. 1 US dollar is equal to 0.87 euros. Putting down my schedule, 1 US dollar is equal to 0.87 euros. But I have 1,200 US dollars. And I'll do the same thing. I'm going to multiply 1,200 by 0.87. And I get 1,044. I have 1,044 euros. Then I go to Europe for a while. I spend most of it, but I have 110 euros left over, and I'm going to convert it to Canadian. I need another skeleton. I need another exchange rate. 1 euro equals 1.56 Canadian. So 110 euros is equal to what? And I get 171.6. My 110 euros was converted into $171.60 Canadian. As you can see, these steps, one at a time, are not very difficult. Please remember to like this video and subscribe. And remember, you can do this, so don't be afraid.